Shalom, beloved family. It's your girl Sophia Spiritually, and we're here for a very new reading for me, and it's directly related to a lot of stuff that's going on right now. So I thought it was a good time to introduce this to you all, and we're going to use our favorite, not favorite celebrity that is back in the news again with some information and things that he's saying, which is interesting, but we're going to put a different spin on it. So, this is what I'm calling a celestial angelic reading. So, if you're new to my page, you've never heard of the celestial angelic reading before, basically what it is every degree over the zodiac has an angel over it. And based on your birth chart, your unique birth chart, you can determine which angels are over your birth chart, who is on your spiritual team. And so we're going to look at Kanye West Spiritual Team. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, number one, if you're interested in like how I pray in and all that stuff, check out my daily prayers. I go through the whole way that I communicate and the way that I interact with the Most High, the angels, the Holy Mother, Yahweh Shai, everybody is there. I'm not going to waste time with that in this video. We're going to try and get in as much information as we can. And also, like, if you want to know what his exact wheel looks like and all of that stuff, there's plenty of astrologers talking about that. What I was interested in is who is on his team, who is advising him right now spiritually, who is influencing him right now spiritually for what is going on with him. So, I'm going to preface this by saying it is, in my opinion, that he's trying to get out of his contracts, all of them. Because if you know or you do not know, he has a lifetime contract, basically a slave contract for his recording contract. All his other contracts, he probably could have got out of them. But that big contract, he has had there's been no way that he can get out of it. So he put out a whole gospel album with some of the best gospel singers in the whole country. That still didn't get him out of his contract. These people, no matter what, are not willing to let him out of his contract. So it is, in my opinion, that he is using this time as a way for getting out of this contract. And you will see that that is supported by who is on his spiritual team. So what I did is I went and I pulled his chart. We know his time of birth. We know that he's a Kokavite. So basically, Enoch is very heavily influencing him as far as the archangels are concerned. Um, and he's a Gemini. So let's just go through this chart. We're going to try and keep this video short so that people can understand how this particular process works. And if you're interested in a reading like this, I do. This is a part of my my readings now. So if you get a regular reading from me, this is information that I will include, so you will know who is on your spiritual team, who is influencing you, and you should be able to line this up with your life. And you're going to see how that works right here with the beloved brother Kanye West. So he doesn't have anything in his first house, which basically means he came here with all of the personality that he was going to need. He already had that from previous incarnations. So that was not really necessary for him. Now, typically, I don't pronounce the names of the angels because they do bear the name of the Most High. And that is not really something that you don't want to use those names until you need them, if you know anything about the spiritual names of the Most High. So I will be spelling the names and referring to them as their degrees and signs, if you are wondering why I'm doing this in the way that I am. So in his second house, which is the house ruled by Taurus, and the house that is typically associated with Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and this is the house of values, money, and talent. In that house, he has Saturn at 12 degrees Leo, and the angel that's over 12 degrees Leo is Aknejonaho. And this particular angel teaches you how to apply correctly the divine virtues in analogy to the laws of creation with the aim of spiritualization. So as it relates to values, money, and talent, you could pretty much see that in like a song like Jesus Walks. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not into like post graduation Kanye. I know all of his older albums front to back. But the newer ones, I don't know. So I can't quote from the last ones, but I can quote you from his earlier work. And so basically, the divine virtues, Jesus walks, that's all the way through that. And you can even see that in his values, which is, talking about getting married, then marrying this, witch prostitute, you know, um, KK, and all she needs is one more K, by the way. And in talent, using his talent to, engage with the Most High, which he has done from very early in his career. In his third house, which he is a Gemini, but he doesn't actually have anything in the Gemini house, which is immediate environment, siblings, short trips, and the logical mind. And that means that he don't really have a lot influencing his logical mind, which is probably why you have things the way that they are. Like, there's no way that you would have a lot of stuff in your third house and you'd be behaving the way that he is. Okay, so in his fourth house, which is a emotional house, Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, that's the inner parent or mother, home, kitchen, and childhood. So his mother, his childhood, kitchen, like his studio, is all very influential in his life, which you can see in the way that he conducts himself, and also how he defends women, aka defending Beyonce, and so on and so forth. So in his fourth house, he has Pluto in 11 degrees of Libra, which is a ruled by Venus. That's Lagiros. And this particular spirit intelligence helps the spiritualite gain the favor of very important people to have petitions handed in to them approved. So here's how you have him getting into contact with like Jay-Z, pushing through and getting a record deal when people were just buying his beats, buying his words, and not actually giving him any money for it. This is how you have something like that happen. This particular angel would have been helping with that. His north node, which north node is what you need to release, because it's the one that's pointing down. It's what you need to release on this life cycle. So his north node is in 22 degrees of Libra, which his Pluto was in 11 degrees, and so his north node is in 22 degrees. There's definitely some significance there. And the angel over 22 degrees Libra is Ornion. And this spirit intelligence makes the spiritualite acquainted with all the necessary scientific facts by which the latter can tell the character and personal peculiarities of an individual already by his appearance. So that's how he can look at people and size people up for if he's going to be able to use them for this or whatever the case may be. I would say the only one of the case where this didn't work would be like KK, because she was using some very powerful sorcery that probably interfered with this, or just caught him at a time when whatever, it was kind of emotional, which he did, because this is in the house of his mother, and then he lost his mother, and then here comes KK with her sorcery. So this is like his mother was protecting him all the way up until she was gone, and then she was able to come in with her sorcery and kind of take over that position. So you can kind of see how this energy was there and how it was playing out all the way up until the literal removal of his mother. Okay, so in his fourth house, he also has Uranus at 8 degrees of Scorpio, and the spirit intelligence over that is Armilee. And this spirit intelligence teaches him how to protect himself after have been made acquainted with special spiritual practices against negative astral influences and against influences of negative beings. Again, this is where you would have had his mother really working with him, and then once she was removed, then you can see where there would be a window for infernal spirits to come in and kind of do their thing. All right, so now he's a Cocovite, but in his Mercury house, work habits, service to others, health, he doesn't have anything in there, and so that's where you would have heavy Enoch influence, Archangel influence right there, Raphael influence there. In house 7, he doesn't have anything, which is ruled by Libra and Venus, and that's partnerships, marriage, and open enemies. So he doesn't have open enemies, which is why it's quite difficult for him to navigate, because all his enemies are quiet enemies, right? And in house 8, which is ruled by which is Scorpio, ruled by oh, that's not ruled by Venus, my bad. It's ruled by something else. I got it wrong. You have death, rebirth, renewal, sex, money from others, and other people's resources. As you can see, he has nothing in his eighth house either, which means again he didn't need nobody else's nothing. Like this death, renewal, death, birth, death, birth, and rebirth. He didn't need any outside influence from that. He already had that inside of him from his last incarnation. So in house 9, you have, which is ruled by Sagittarius. It's a Jupiterian planet, a Jupiterian constellation. You have, which it is long journeys, expansion, higher education, and social justice. I'm trying to get through this and tripping over my words, you guys. So my apologies. You have the moon at 16 degrees of Pisces. And so remember, moon energy is that feminine mother energy. And that's where it comes into play is with where it relates to higher education, social justice, and long journeys. So the spirit intelligence over 16 degrees Pisces is FERMETU. And this is a great creator of peace, since all matters which have to do with peace come under his competence, no matter whether whole nations are involved or whether peace in the family and marriage is concerned. And so it seems to me this is where you have that influence of kind of like, I hate to relate this to the whole Taylor Swift thing. So kind of like when he came on stage, he knew there's a lot of animosity over, Taylor winning that award. And so his way of making peace, which is a typical Cocovite way of dealing with something, is to say directly to the person's face, look, I understand what you got going on here, but, sis had the best album. You know what I mean? Like, so that whole piece was just, it was kind of a backwards piece. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where if you maybe weren't under such heavy influence of spirits, you may have made peace a different way. But you also have a situation with, Kanye coming out during the Katrina situation and saying what he said about Bush and black folks or whatever. So it's kind of like you're making peace by putting it out in the open, because this is on the top half of your chart, which is some stuff that you handle openly. And so this is kind of how you see this. Again, now he's coming out, he's putting all this information out in the open so that people can't pretend like, they never heard someone say, oh, the blacks are the Jews, or blacks are from this planet. I mean, this continent, stuff like that. People won't be able to say they never heard it. So in a way, it's actually helpful for moving humanity forward, because people can either listen to what he's saying and draw the line and say, look, I draw the line here. What you're saying is not right. It's not true. I've done my own research and I don't believe you. Or people are going to say, what you're saying is true. I believe what you're saying. I've done my research and I've come to that conclusion. Or you will have people say, look at that Negro over there. He's shucking and jiving. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to disregard his comment. So, you have, everybody will pick their side, and you're judged by what side you pick, especially in this case. All right, so in his 10th house is where he has most of his planets. And again, that's in his father's house, which is interesting because he really didn't have a relationship with his father. And so not until kind of recently. And so that has a lot to do probably with all of the outside, all the celestial energy coming in to that 10th house. He really didn't need the actual physical relationship with his father, probably wasn't as critical. It didn't influence him as much as his relationship with his mother, based on how his signs are set up. So in the 10th house, which is Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, and that's the outer parent or father, public image, authority, and career. And this is why he would have been elevated into celebrity due to his placements in this 10th house, which he has everything except for sun. Like, basically, like, that would have made that a perfect placement. So he has his part of fortune, which a lot of astrologers, people don't discuss, because if you started talking about the part of fortune, that's where you're always going to have your luck. So his luck is always going to come in his public image. So that's where his part of fortune is. And it's in 16 degrees of Aries, which is ARGILO. And This spirit intelligences as has answers to questions in answers in all questions of love, friendship in the mental, astral, and physical plane. So basically, his fortunate part is going to come in with his relationships in the mental, astral, and physical plane. And so right now he's doing things in the physical plane, but they're having serious consequences in the astral and the mental plane because he's challenging people mentally. And this is a fortunate part for him. How he's handling the situation is how someone with this kind of placement would handle a situation, to put so much information into the public sphere that they just leave you alone. Because when people are willing to put everything in public, you know, just like with his kids, like he marries one of the most public figures there are. So basically, no one's going to really mess with his kids because they're quite terrified of, that whole Jenner family and whatever it is they're involved in. So that was a very, prudent, decision to have all these children with this person. And then on top of that, you have everything that they do in the public. So if they think they're going to do some secret sacrifice, ritual, whatever, nah, everything is out in the public. And being that they're his children, he is going to be like, look, I'm not having my kids dressed like this, involved in this stuff, doing this kind of stuff. So he's able to provide them with a protection just by the sheer fact that everything they do is public. Whereas you have, look at Kylie and the other one. I hate to say that. I can't remember the other, but look at them. Their stuff was all private. Nobody knows exactly. I mean, people talk about it, but you don't know exactly what was done as far as sacrifices, rituals, whatever the case may be. However, you do know that something was done because you can see it by, it's evidenced by the Kendall, there we go, Kylie and Kendall. It's evidenced by the result that there was something done. So you will be able to look at the West children and see, based on the result, is something done. Whatever it is, it's not going to be no easy. We're just going to do this stuff to you, and you can compare this to like Scottie Pippen's wife and Larsa, I guess her name is, and her daughter with the butterfly bathing suits and all that stuff. So compared to some other celebrities where you can see that obviously something was done, it's going to be much more difficult to do that with the West children because of the sheer fact that so much is in the public, right? And so anyway, his south node, which is what he needs to receive in this lifetime, is in 22 degrees of Aries, and the spirit intelligence over that is Bekaro, which is an especially high who has an especially high interest for justice and harmony. So in this life cycle, in his father's house, you have him receiving in this life cycle justice and harmony. So if you wonder why he just won't go away, he has to get justice in this life cycle. That is what he was sent here to do, is to get justice for him and for his bloodline. And so that's why you have this happening to him so publicly. Number one, it's in a public house, and it's in the father's house, and that's what he literally must accomplish. This was his mission in this life cycle. Okay. He also has Mars at 1 degree of Taurus, and the spirit intelligence for that is SERAP. And this spirit intelligence, he likes to give the spiritualite methodological. I cannot ever say that word properly because I keep thinking Methodist, but methodological instructions how to proceed with various spiritual practices for the making of friends, the arousing of sensations of love, improving the power of propagation. So again, this is in the planet that's typically affiliated with like your war planet. And so you have your fighting planet. So again, this is where you have him with the public fights with everybody and the whole Taylor Swift thing and the George Bush thing. You have this spirit intelligence bringing that energy to him in, again, a very public place. His Venus is right beside it. I also have this placement where my Mars and my Venus are right beside each other. So you kind of have it subdued a little bit, but also intensified because being that he's a cocovite, his emotions are going to be sort of like muted in some cases and super intense in other places. And that's just the nature of a cocovite. And his is at 2 degrees of Taurus. And so then you have all of this. This is where you get your Venus, your love energy in, because he has all these things in Taurus. He has a lot of stuff in Taurus. And so the spirit intelligence is MOLABEDA. And this spirit intelligence is knows about the application of electric fluid in connection with the element of fire. Various phenomena in nature which are equivalent to miracles can be caused. This is how you have him producing records, because electric fluid is like your kundalini fire, and connected with the element of fire, which is his words that come out of his mouth. So you have in this love energy, the fire, the kundalini fire, paired directly up with the fire coming out of his mouth. So that's a lot of fire in one place, which is why he always says stuff like the words he spit are fire and this and that. Like his lyrics are very fire-like in nature. At least his original lyrics were very like woo, like that's like those are some serious lyrics, like of a thinker, but from that fire that's on the inside, and then the fire just comes out the mouth of delivery. So that's where you have all of that uniqueness and the passion, like because of the Taurus placement, all kind of bundled up in one. So in his Chiron, if you don't know, Chiron is the planet that governs love and marriage specifically. That's at 4 degrees Taurus. So his Chiron, the planet that governs the marriage, is in a sign that is related to Venus. Okay, so the spirit intelligence that's at 4 degrees of Taurus is Faluna. And this spirit intelligence helps the spiritualite, should he want it, to wealth. So this is why you have him ending up being wealthy, because his planet of marriage is like married to the money. You know what I mean? It's just it once he engaged in that thing, he's tied to it. And like I said with someone who I was speaking to this about last night, even if he does lose all his endorsements, what he won't lose is his words, that kundalini fire, his hands. Manny Fresh said that in one. Even if y'all do, I still got my hands, so I'm still, I can DJ, and that's how it is with Kanye West. Even if he lose everything, people will still go to him for beats. People will still go to him to write. Even if he's got to start back at the bottom, people will still go to him. Why? Because he still has that fire. He still has his words. He still has his ability to make beats. None of that was taken away from him. So no matter what, he will still have this marriage to the wealth, because he came here with that. There's nobody that can take that from him. No matter what they do, they can't take that from him. That's why they're trying to discredit him emotionally and spiritually, because they can't take it from him any other way. It can't be taken from him. It's in his father's house. The father gave that to him specifically. You can't take that. All you can do is influence perception, which they're doing a worse and worse job at, because there's a whole spiritual awakening amongst the people, the so-called blacks of this country, to some of the lies that have been told. And so there's not really anything that Psalm 83 or anyone else can do to take this from him. All right, so in his 11th house, which is Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, that's friends, peer groups, group goals, and activism. And he has Mercury. Now remember, Mercury, he's ruled by Mercury because he's a cocovite. And Gemini is also ruled by Mercury. And so you have this in, the house of group goals and activism. So he has Mercury at 26 degrees of Taurus. So like I said, he has a lot of emotional passion, energy. And also another thing about Venus is that it also is like karma, like it judges the karma. It has to be honest about what is going on. So that's where you have a lot of his, I'm just being honest. I'm honestly saying what he says is what he's not lying about what he's saying. He honestly believes it. One thing he is missing is some of the finer details, but that could be also due to who he's getting his information from. If he came over to us, Big Levi, Big Judah, myself, we could really educate him on what he's talking about especially Big Levi, especially Big Judah. I highly recommend somebody get that information to Kanye so he can be properly educated in what he's discussing. So again, his Mercury is at 26 degrees of Taurus, and the spirit intelligence over that is AMALOMI. And this spirit intelligence is the cosmic language teacher. By him, the spiritualite is instructed how to use the Kabbalah. That is the cosmic language with reference to the physical world. Again, more with how he speaks, how it ties to karma, and how it ties to the spiritual world. There, that's where you have, that is what controls his intelligence. Now, I don't think he's been, like I said, fully versed in the proper use of the Kabbalah. And so that's, and because when you deal with different organizations, they give you different information. So, like I said, if he comes over to, Brother Big Judah, Brother Levi, myself, we can give him some information, like directing where to look on how to properly use the Kabbalah, because he's just got it a little bit out of order right now. Um, and he has Jupiter in his 11th house. Now remember, this is group goals and activism, and that's at 14 degrees of Gemini, and he is a Gemini as well. And this is Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and the spirit intelligence is AMAMI, and this helps the spiritualite with philosophical literature, or he helps him to get a hold of the right books or other literature. So this is where he's having kind of a problem. He's not into the right books right now. He doesn't have proper access to the proper literature that would help him make sense of what he's saying. However, I do think something is getting him that information, and I request that the spirits do get him the proper information so that when he speaks, he's speaking with a higher level of intelligence than he is right now. Not that what he's saying is untrue, it's just that the collective on our side is way ahead of that. So he's got some work to do to catch up. All right. And so in his 12th house, which is your last house, and that's Pisces, ruled by Neptune, and that's universal compassion, karma, dreams, subconscious awareness, and secrets. And he has his sun in his 12th house, which is at 17 degrees Gemini, very Mercurian influence. And that spirit intelligence is URGIVOH. And this spirit intelligence is responsible for gaining the favor of very important persons. He also instructs the magician, spiritualite, how to become liked by men or women, whichever seems necessary for him. So this is also a little bit out of balance because he's not making himself more liked right now. Maybe that in a way that would be useful for him, but he's also, like I said, I believe he's trying to get out of his contract. So this influence could be influencing him on the other side, because you got to use the light in the dark so that he is able to come from out of his contract. So you have, it isn't a kind of influence, but it's kind of like a negative influence so that he is able to accomplish what he's trying to accomplish. And so, the spirit intelligences are not themselves negative or positive. You can use the negative side or the positive side. And so right now, I think he's pulling in the energy from the negative side so that he's able to reach his particular goal, and that spirit intelligence is giving him that energy so he can reach that particular goal. I also think this has a lot to do with his Chicago influence and having been able to navigate that whole situation, successfully or whatever, and bringing together different groups of people. Because if you remember, he had good music, and he was, he had brought on artists that people had basically abandoned. And, he did this for so long, people don't even remember, all he did to basically like resurrect real hip hop. And people don't give him any credit for that. Everyone has forgotten. And, all the artists he put on, like Common and Mos Def, they went on in acting and they kind of left them behind, you know what I mean? But he really put on a lot of people, and so, that's something that people don't think about. And this spirit intelligence would have been helping him to make these connections at this time so that he was able to use this. So, this is just a beginning. There's a lot more in-depth information that can be gone into about developing your relationship with your spiritual team, and how to use these different intelligences and how to connect with the other intelligence that you have access to. So, of course, if you want more information, you can go to my website, fruitsandspirit.com, request a reading with me, send me an email. My email is in the description, and I'll be glad to talk with anybody who's interested, on figuring out how to develop their spiritual team. There's a do-it-yourself research option. I try to make it easy if you are low on sources and you can't have me do it. And Gentiles and Psalm 83, you're going to have to let me do it for you. These spirit intelligences are not going to be easily accessible for you due to what your people did to my people. It is what it is. I just need to make sure people understand that. But for everyone, people who are in the nation or whatever, you can have access to this information. It's out there. I'll point you in the right direction. Gentiles, 2/3, you're going to have to pay. It is what it is. That's what, so saith the Lord. So, to the spirits who are here with us, you're invited to go in peace. To my beloved viewers, you're invited to be at peace. And always remember, the Most High is your peace. Shalom.